Hey everybody, welcome back to the Practical Enthusiast Garage. Today we're going to be changing out the seals and the gaskets on the transmission and the backside of the engine. Now before we do that, let's take a look at the transmission that I have just recently cleaned up. Take a look at that. It almost looks like new now. So if you remember from the last video, this thing was just a brown, blackish hunk of grease and grime, and now it has cleaned up to be this aluminum silver beauty it should have been all along. So you might be wondering, how was I able to convert this into what it looks like right now? Well, the truth is, it was a couple hours of scrubbing with engine degreaser and various bristle brushes, and then I threw it in the back of the Tacoma truck that I have, took it over to the local car wash, and just sprayed it off in the back of the truck. So most of the grime ended up in the back of my truck, so I'm gonna have to clean that later. But look at the result. That's right. It cost me about $6 all in to do all that. So not a bad result. Gives you a much better surface to work with when changing out the seals and everything like that. With this thing all cleaned up now, let's get to resealing it. First thing we're gonna do with this transmission is change out the output shaft seal. This one should be pretty easy. Something interesting I observed when I pulled the seal out. You can see in there, this right here, that is the tensioner spring that is supposed to be in the inside of the seal that keeps the writing edge of the seal tight against the output flange. Well, since the spring obviously had fallen out, no wonder this seal had failed and was leaking. Oh well, let's throw the new seal in there. Next, we're going to change out the shift selector shaft seal. But to do that, we're going to need to remove this shift rod first. So we're going to undo this circlip and remove all that assembly. You want to make sure you put a little bit of transmission oil on there before you slide the shaft seal in. That way it doesn't get hung up on the selector mechanism. The next thing on the list to seal up on the back side of the transmission is the Detent spring cover. The final transmission seal to do is on the input shaft. To do that, I'm going to need to remove the clutch fork, then the throwout bearing sleeve, which is held on by this backing plate, which looks like it has 6 bolts that hold it in. You take that out, and then we'll be able to get to the seal for the input shaft. Now that I have the transmission all sealed up, it's time to turn my attention to the seals and gaskets on the back side of the engine. So I got the rear main seal changed out. Put a new gasket on the rear main seal carrier. Unfortunately, the oil pan uses a gasket. Found that out once I pulled the carrier off, and I had to use a semi-setting gasket sealer in order to get that gasket to seal up, especially where it meets the engine block and meets the carrier. That's kind of a sketchy situation. I'm just kind of hoping for the best because I got it tucked in there as good as I can in those corners. So again, that's the Permatex number 2 non-hardening gasket sealer. Should seal up all the little nooks and crannies that were a little difficult to get to. Anyway, the new rear main seal looks like it's fitted up well. Put a little bit of engine oil on the lip of the seal so that it kind of slipped over the edge of the crankshaft nice and easily. Got all the bolts torqued to specification, and we're pretty much good to go on that end. Alright, so that wraps up the resealing of the transmission and of the backside of the engine, and with that, that completes this video. I'm still waiting on a couple of parts to get this transmission back into the car, things like the starter motor and a couple other little things. So that means I'm going to concentrate my attention to the backside of the car, and that's going to be the focus of the next video. Things like the emergency brake cables and possibly the rear axles will be addressed in that video. So again, thanks for hanging in there with me on this project. It's going to take a while, but we'll get it done. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.